imagine that a nuclear wipeout was actually being considered. We haven't seen the end of this madness. The whole world is in a kind of titanic suspension. We will keep waltzing away till we sink. Each political head is engrossed in their own miserable problems. No great nation gives overarching primacy to what is happening to the world. According to a secret document dated September 15, 1945, the Pentagon had envisaged blowing up the Soviet Union with a coordinated nuclear attack directed against major urban areas. All major cities of the Soviet Union were included in the list of 66 strategic targets. Sooner or later, if we fail to act, Allah will run out. I am reading a sentence from the speech given by the Nobel Peace Prize winners. And in fact, much earlier the Canberra Commission had said the same thing, and Dr. Donald McCoy was one of its members. Russia and America are modernizing their nuclear forces at huge expense. China is enlarging its nuclear arsenal, and so are the lesser nuclear players like the ones on the subcontinent. President Putin's latest announcement of the latest underwater missile capabilities could bring nuclear war to the oceans. The seas were the cradle of life. We are already in the process of destroying the earth and the atmosphere above. The only place left is the oceans. People don't realize the number of nuclear submarines that are being made. The very low frequencies on which they operate are very close to the mating call of the whales over thousands of kilometers in the deep oceans. These interfere with the mating calls, and the population of the whales will come to an end before the nuclear submarine disappears. They are mad, from usual militarism to exterminism. Devastating war in space will break out between nations within a matter of years, warns US Air Force Chief. A leading member of the US Air Force claims a space war could be imminent. In a matter of years, major world powers could be fighting in space, and President Donald Trump has asked for a space force to be set up. We are not yet talking of a nuclear exchange that has taken place. Your attention is invited to what is being read out now. Fukushima darkness. The radiation effects of the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant triple meltdowns are felt worldwide, whether lodged in sea life or in humans. It accumulates over time. The impact is now slowly grinding away, only to show its true colors at some unpredictable date in the future. That's how radiation works, slow but assuredly destructive, which serves to identify its risks, meaning one nuke meltdown has the impact over decades of 1,000 industrial accidents, maybe more. Chernobyl provides a perfect case study of radiation-caused deaths of workers with a direct link. The liquidators exposed to Chernobyl radiation in 1986. Keeping in mind that radiation takes several years to show up as cancer and other serious ailments. By 2001, of 800,000 healthy Russian and Ukrainian liquidators with an average age of 33 years sent to decontaminate, isolate, and stabilize the reactor, 10% had died and 30% were disabled. By 2009, 120,000 liquidators had died, and an epidemic of chronic illness and genetic and perigenetic damage in nuclear workers' descendants appeared This is predicted to increase over subsequent generations. The full extent of the damage will not be understood till the fifth generation of descendants. By the mid-2000s, 985,000 additional deaths between 1986 and 2004 across Europe were estimated as a direct result from radiation exposure from Chernobyl. I am reading from Berners-Lee. Chernobyl likely foreshadows a dismal future for those exposed to Fukushima radiation, whether residents, workers, or untold recipients throughout the extent of flowing seas, which is universal. For an example, how radiation devastates human bodies generation by generation, consider. There are nearly 2,397,863 people registered in Ukraine's health ministry to receive ongoing Chernobyl-related health care. Of these, 400,000 and more children are none born at the time of the accident. Their parents were children in 1986. These children have a range of illnesses: respiratory, digestive, musculoskeletal, eye diseases, blood diseases, cancer, congenital malformations, genetic abnormalities, and trauma after so many generations. Nuclear arms agreements that maintain a modicum of check on proliferation are flying. Since the P5 have not even started discussions on Article C6, leave alone cutting back, the NPT for all practical purposes has become a dead letter. As was mentioned in the morning, the Conference on Disarmament in Geneva that has been discussing FMCT for decades may as well be wound up. Because hereafter, if the world is to ward off the looming Armageddon, it will have to go in for an all-encompassing omnibus agreement, while there is a measure of rationality obtaining in the powers that have the wherewithal to bring the curtain down on the survival of the human race. We know the historic 122 Nation Treaty on the Abolition of Nuclear Weapons was signed last July at the UN. But where do we go from there? Even if 189 nations were to ultimately become signatories to this treaty, the original P5 plus the new Nuclear 4 or Nuclear 5 will continue pushing their arsenals till the final Holocaust does come about. So what is to be done? Do we wait for the last climactic? I will revert to this again. The historic, all-encompassing, single-item agreement pushed by ICAN, IPCNW, IDPD and associates in the United Nations for the total ban on nuclear weapons was signed by 122 nations. As and when pressure leads to a final agreement, it will require a World Nuclear Council, WNC, comprising 5 of the most eminent world citizens to oversee in a manner respected by the whole world the gradual dismantling of thousands of nuclear weapons in an equitable manner. The World Nuclear Council, alternating as the World Environmental Council, which takes its seat as the 6th veto power in the UN Security Council. It will exercise the veto power when it feels that the interest of future generations and the viability of the planet are being threatened. The manner of selection, replacement, and functioning have been spelled out in the book, Third Millennium Equipoise, that came out in 1998. Dr. Ronald Rotai, past president, was the one who made sure that world leaders again got it. Which today has the most comprehensive blueprint for reaching the zero nuclear state in stages that could take several decades to implement. The start point would be the Universal Declaration in the UN General Assembly, as mentioned in the morning, to ban nuclear weapons with immediate effect. I will move on to an equally important but largely ignored subject, and that is the nuclear trap. Today, nobody has given sufficient thought to the legacy factor. As Sir James Goldsmith, dying from the effects of pancreatic cancer at a farmhouse in southern Spain around 1997, he sent me his book, The Trap. In it, he cautions the current generation of the legacy that they would be bequeathing coming generations when the nuclear reactors being built are to be entombed. He reckoned the cost factor would be a multiple of the cost to build the reactors. Today, there are 30 countries worldwide that are operating 450 nuclear reactors, producing plutonium for electricity generation, and 60 new nuclear plants are under construction in 15 countries. Nuclear power plants provided 11% of the world's electricity production in 2014. Seeing that the average size nuclear plant costs $5 to $6 billion to build, the total cost of decommissioning and entombment in the next 50 to 100 years could turn out to be in the trillions of dollars. This is a very conservative estimate, seeing that Fukushima is likely to cost the Japanese government around $180 billion and still counting before they make it safe. There is still a big if. Japan's government has finally admitted that the process of removing the irradiated core from the 3 crippled reactors will take at least 40 years. While we keep our eye on the situation at Fukushima, we are talking of figures that are beyond comprehension. Nobody in the world seems to be worried about the legacy costs for our children and grandchildren. Besides the radiation that would have engulfed the world due to several mishaps till then, we are saddling them with crippling costs that could only further cripple them mentally and physically. We haven't done yet. To the above must be added the cost of decommissioning 15,000 nuclear weapons or whatever remains after the Holocaust, which seems most likely the way those who hold the destiny of the world in their hands are leading the world. I am sure that all present here are on the same page regarding the need to highlight the consequences of the nuclear trap and the legacy quest for the successor younger generations. The following additional aspects are considered prerequisites for any meaningful forward movement on a planetary scale. Dilution of national sovereignties. Hereafter, the supreme national interest must yield to the supreme planetary interest. Evidently, it has to be applicable equally to the big and small, as well as the strong and weak states, without differentiation. The presence of the World Nuclear Council and the United States Security Council will safeguard the interest of the minnows. Negotiation of global protocols. Once nations have indicated their adherence to painfully negotiated global treaties like the NPT, CTBT and other treaties of similar nature, there should be no opting out clause in the national interest. because should there remain even residual doubt about certain countries, many others might feel that they too would have to keep all options open to keep the powder dry, so to say. As an example, the ABM Treaty signed between the US and the Soviet Union in 1972 remained the anchor pin of global military stability even after the demise of the Soviet Union, till President George W. Bush unilaterally abrogated it in 2002 and opened the floodgates for the militarization of space. The race has been joined across the world. Universal Declaration of No First Use by all nuclear weapons, as mentioned earlier. This is where the nearly 180 plus nations that have absorbed nuclear weapons can and should dictate terms. The first step would have to be a resolution passed by the General Assembly to demand this of the nuclear haves. The July 2000 Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons was adopted by an overwhelming 122 to 1 vote by UN member states, determined to provide a legal basis for the elimination of the world's worst weapons of mass destruction. But where do we go from there? Even if 189 nations were to ultimately become signatories to this treaty, the original P5 plus the new N405 will continue pushing their arsenals till the final holocaust does come about. So what is to be done? Do we wait for Armageddon? The first aspect to be considered is whether we are negotiating from a position of strength or weakness. Should we go to the superpowers with a timid plea for a return to sanity, or should we demand of them in the name of humanity that they listen to the voice of reason? Conceivably, we have yet to recognize our strength. Perhaps for the first time in the history of our race, there is a global consensus, a universal abhorrence of the nuclear monster. If the population of the world is reckoned at 6.5 billion people, it would be no exaggeration to say that well over 99.9% of humans fervently wish to rid the world of a peril which not only threatens their survival, but one which is slowly numbing their mind to every conceivable horror. Going a bit further, it can be safely stated that over 80% of humanity being sucked into this maelstrom has not even heard of vision or future. A careful study of the power structures in the more important capitals would reveal that in the world there are possibly 10 or 20,000 people who are actively fueling the arms race. Even if we were to double this figure, it would still not give us an answer to the question as to how nearly 6,500 million human beings are allowing such an infinitely small number to lead them towards oblivion. Our state of helplessness is an insult to the intelligence of every individual. It is a negation of the collective will of mankind. I conclude. The dominant pulse sweeping humanity today is the overwhelming desire for peace. Yet it is peace that eludes the world. Is it not a contradiction in terms? That we are unable to mobilize this groundswell for peace can no longer be used as an excuse by putting the blame on warmongers. Call them what you will, the military-industrial complex, capitalist lobbies, backers of terror, or any other group that is bent upon waging war, instigating war, or profiting from war. No matter how many groups, big or small, known and unknown, are added to this category, they still do not add up to more than a fraction of 1 percentage point of the human mass on the planet. Movement, entities, and hopefully leaders seeking global harmony must address this paradox. Last paragraph, not long before he died, Stephen Hawking, world-renowned author of A Brief History of Time, in an interview opined that unless humanity changed course, the end could come as soon as 20 years. The cause of the final cataclysm would either be climate change and global warming, or nuclear exchange. More likely the latter. Thank you very much.